all sorts of interesting things happen when you have a group of young people from all over the place living in one place. It's like a big group home.
You know, the environment is close, everyone lives in close proximity.
It's sometimes difficult because you don't really know what kind of moods you're in. And sometimes I'm not in the mood, or I don't really know what I want. So sometimes people that I'm just like really not in the mood for them to come by, I'm just like, like, why are you here right now? Please just kind of leave.
You know, I'm from Toronto, and Confederation Colleges in Thunder Bay, so I didn't know the area whatsoever. You know, it's the whole American Pie type living, if you want. Well, going into it, that's what I thought it was going to be like, right? I mean, we didn't want to party and live hardy, right?
If we didn't have rules around noise or rules around disrespectful behavior, it would just be horrible.
There was many people, like being an RA, you know of people that just get into the party scene, and it's so easy to do that because in Thunder Bay people like to drink. Maybe not even Thunder Bay, but in college, because that's what people say that college life is supposed to be like. You know, it's your time to kind of experiment and drink and sometimes do drugs.
Alcohol and drug abuse. Having difficulty sort of coping with the freedom of not having a control, it's more control sort of exerted by parents. Breakups. Not being able to do well sort of academically despite doing well in high school.
Drug use is also another thing that can be peer pressure. There's a lot of people who may not have been into that before coming, but they end up hanging out with crowds that might be into that.
If the person is really easily distracted and they perhaps haven't learned, you know, to say no, it's more difficult for them, and they tend oftentimes to fall behind with their schoolwork.
So it depends how strong you are and whether you have your priorities in check, because your friends, or maybe not so much your friends, aren't going to be the ones to tell you to stick to your schedule. So it's going to be you that has to be the one to do that. A bit of maturity, a bit of self-discipline, those are the kids that really do well in this environment.
I see the people in the hallways who are like, oh, what's everyone doing? And they're running around at 3 in the morning like they're hot shit, and you're just like, man, you don't have class in the morning? Like,
you can do too much of it. You have to do these things in moderation. Some people just can't do that. They're not mature enough to know what moderation is, and they don't know their limits yet. This is kind of their time to figure out what their limits are. So sometimes you go over your limit and then you're not having such a great morning the next morning.
Helping kids through a really, really interesting transitional time from 17 to 20. I mean, it's a really vulnerable time for a lot of young people.
Well, I think one of the biggest things is, you know, making friends and having support. Here, you know, in this residence, because it's small, it's only a couple of hundred people, we get to know everyone really well, and so, and our you know, our pipeline, it works. You know, the resident advisors will know when somebody's getting sick, for instance, and they'll make sure that I know about it so that I can follow up and get them to the doctor or get them to the walk-in clinic or whatever is necessary to keep them healthy so that they don't miss too much school. Certainly the support, the fact that you know, it's a fresh start for everybody. You know, you're coming into an environment that's kind of similar to high school.
We do know statistically that in terms of proportion of students that are successful in post-secondary, if they live at home, they're the most successful cohort. If they live in residence, they're the next most successful cohort. If they live away from home and not in residence, they're the least successful cohort. So something happens when they're in residence. They get supported quicker. They typically are noticed when things aren't going well. Typically there's more sort of mechanisms that kick in place. If you have a residence advisor, as we do, who just picks up on everything, you tend to get noticed when you're in residence. You're more connected with other people. As a result, I think the intervention that has to happen with some kids happens faster. So the outcomes for post-secondary success is higher in residence than if you live off campus. So, but we've known that for years. We've known that for years.
We spend a lot of time talking to our students before they even come about this, and you have to understand why we have these rules. And if you don't buy into that, maybe residence isn't the place for you. You might not be successful in terms of being a valuable member in this community because you can't buy into why we have to have the rules that we do.
But I think also residence is such a great experience. There are a lot of institutions that insist that if you're going to be a first-year student, you must live in residence. There are universities that actually say that is your rule, and there's reasons for that. And one of the reasons is you inculcate a value set when you stay in residence.
I would say it was definitely life-changing, for sure, because I wouldn't be outgoing as I am right now. Like, when I first came here, I was definitely shy. Like, I didn't talk to anybody, and even, like, in my first year before I was an RA, like, I had a roommate, and the only reason why I got out there was because of my roommate.
We draw a lot of our leaders, our activists, the students that are involved in campus functions. They disproportionately come from residence.
You don't come here by chance, you know what I mean? But yeah, I definitely feel the need to get out and experience the world for myself. And you learn a lot about yourself when you do that.
All sorts of questions they have to start to actually answer. Like, what am I going to do? And what do I want to do? And who do I want to be in terms of that? Because all through high school, a lot of kids don't really know. They play a bunch of different roles, and then they actually have to sort of decide where they're going to go and what they're going to do.
Well, I guess it was a good story, residence. I don't regret not living there, but I don't regret living there or not living there. You know, I was indifferent. It was an experience. Had a great time. Had some troubles through it, but, you know, I grew. Would I recommend someone living residence? Yeah, for sure, for their first year. And then go experience something else for their next.